Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Life with Patty. Happy Thursday evening, everybody. So, it's not a haul today. It is a book review, folks. Yep, I am reviewing Kristen Hannah, The Woman. This is on the top #1 selling book right now. It's the #1 New York Times best-selling author, but it is also right now in, I believe, the New York Times best-selling. I don't know if it's #1, but it's up there. And so this book is about nurses that went to Vietnam and served their country by being in the hospitals back there, which were just basically tents that they made into hospitals. Anyways, they did have to go through basic training, and this one is based on 3 different nurses and their situations to go over there. I do not want to go into a lot of detail of it because I want you guys to read this book. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. You know, everybody's saying they gave it a 5, 5, 5. I belong to a book club on Facebook. Everybody was raving about it. Then there was a few that didn't like it at all. I did like it, but I did feel like it was a bit dragged on. So I think Kristen Hannah likes to write books that are 400, 500, 600 pages, and so I feel like she was continuing the story so that she would make her quota of pages. However, it was a great book. I was little during the Vietnam War, and like the character in the book said, you know, most people in California or in the United States, if you didn't have a family member over in Vietnam, they here in our country tried to act like everything was fine, nothing bad was happening. You know, they tried to just sugarcoat it. And for me as a little girl, it never got brought up at our dinner table. It never got brought up ever. I didn't even realize that we had a war going on as a little girl. So it talks about how when she gets home, the disrespect she gets, and that the people in the United States, she comes home and they're calling her a baby killer, and they're calling her all these different names. They're spitting at her because she was in uniform when she got off the plane. Her own people in the United States spitting on her because she was in uniform, and so they were saying she was a baby killer. No respect. Even her family, her father, gave her no respect when she came back home. Her brother, he died over in Vietnam, and he was the hero, but she wasn't even considered a veteran. And so it goes on in the book to talk about the 3 nurses and how they survived when they got back. And one nurse had a very hard time adjusting back to civilization, or what do I want to say? You know, not in the war and not in the army. And she had PTS, and PTS wasn't such a thing back then in the 60s. They didn't even consider it something. She went for help. She went to the Veterans Center, and she wanted to go for counseling. Her own veterans turned her away and said, "You're not a veteran. You weren't out on the front lines. You didn't see people dying." She saw plenty of people dying. She was a nurse. She watched hundreds of men die that came in from on the line. She watched many children that had been bombed. They brought them in, and she held them until they died. And yet she was getting no respect even from her own veteran. They didn't want to see her. And they said just to carry on with life, just go on with life. And it wasn't until the 80s that they came up with PTS, and they recognized that the nurses were veterans and that they did need counseling. They would get it through the veterans, but it took all the way till 1983. And that's when I graduated high school. And you just thought, oh, Vietnam War, it's over and done with. It's all out. It's over. Everything's fine. But she was still suffering because she had never got any proper training. And yet she went back to work as a nurse at different hospitals, and they said she was a phenomenal nurse. And but when she first got back, they said, you didn't do any real nursing over there. So they had her changing bedpans and getting water like a candy striper or a CNA would do. And she was an RN. She had gone all through college. She was an RN, and then she went and served her country. And when she was over in Vietnam, the doctors had her actually finishing up surgeries and sewing them back up. They had her doing trachs. They had her doing all kinds of things that really legally only a doctor can do. But she was doing them because they were short-staffed with doctors, and they saw the potential that she could handle that. So she was doing all that, but yet when she got back to the United States and she went and applied at a hospital in San Diego and they hired her, they told her she had no real experience as a nurse yet, and that she just had to watch what they're doing and just do bedpans and fill up water pitchers. So the story was a good story, and I have to say it ended with a good ending, and I'm not going to tell you anything about the ending because it's completely did not see it coming, but I thought it was a great ending. It was a great book. I just thought it was a little drawn out. Maybe I'm even being harsh with a 4. Maybe it was a 4.5 out of 5. You know, because it was a really good book, and I think you should read it. My boss's mother read it. She absolutely loved it, but she was a nurse, and she was a nurse practicing during the Vietnam War era. You know, during those years, she was a practicing nurse, not in Vietnam, but she could relate to it. I know that I have an aunt who her husband was in Vietnam, and he ended up killing himself when he got home. And it was always shushed under the table. Don't talk about it at the table. Don't talk about it. And so my aunt even has a hard time to this day that she knows that her husband had a hard time. He came back, and they were married when he left. He came back. They had 2 children. She loved him unconditionally. He loved his children. He loved his wife. He couldn't handle what he saw over there because he did not get the proper counseling when he got home. And so he ended up killing himself, and that's a true story with my family. So, you know, I just think it's a part of history that everybody should know about. And so I'm glad that I read it. And Kristen Hanna is a great author. I've read many of her books. She does a lot of research for her books. And so I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 because it is really a good book. So if you've read this book, in the comments below, tell me what you think of it. And if not, I hope that you will check it out at your library. You can get it on Amazon. You can get this book almost anywhere because it's one of the top selling books right now. So that is my book review for tonight. I have another book that I'm reading right now called The Great Fight, and it's from Danielle Steele, and I'm halfway through it. And what is it about? It was about World War II, and now it's going into the Vietnam War, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got over a book like that, but I will finish it. So anyways, I hope you guys all have a great evening. Take care, and let me know if you've read this book and what you thought about. If not, go to your local library, get on Amazon, order this book. You really need to read it. All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.